So in numbers 12 through 15, this is actually a matching game. So they're asking you to take the root and put it into fractional form. So they have the square root of a cubed. What you need to remember is that anytime you see a square root, there's actually an invisible 2 that you can't see right there. So that means that this is, don't forget, you have n a all raised to the m, which is the same as a raised to the n over m. So this is really a to the 2/3. A to the 2/3. Whoops. Next, you have negative cube root of 3. Notice how the negative is out front. That means that it's a negative coefficient, not a negative exponent. So you have negative a. When you don't see an exponent on this, you automatically assume it has an exponent of 1. So what that's going to look like is negative a, to the 1/3. For 14 and 15, you have the cube root of a all squared. So what that one looks like is a. And then you have, oops. You have the, dang it. You have a to the 3/2. Give it under. Just like, no, I did that backwards. I'm so sorry. I apologize. Please ignore me. You have a to the 2/3. It's exponent over root. Exponent over root. And then in number 15, you have 1 over the cube root of a. Whenever that's in a denominator, you know that you have a negative exponent. If your whole function is in a denominator, you have a negative exponent. Notice how there is no exponent on this cube root, so you assume that it is 1. So really, you have a to the negative 1/3. A to the negative 1/3 would be your final answer there. I'm going to keep this recording going with number 16. So on number 16, it says 6x cubed equals negative 6. Your goal first is to get x cubed by itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by 6. When I do that, I get x cubed equals negative 1. In order to get rid of the cube sign, so in order to get rid of an exponent, I'm going to go ahead and use that root. These 3's right here are going to cancel each other out. And what I do to the left, I have to do to the right. So now I have x equals the cube root of negative 1. You can type that into your calculator using 3 math 5, and you get x is negative 1. For number 17, your goal is to get x plus 5 raised to the 4th by itself. You want whatever has the exponent to be alone. So what you're going to do is you're going to divide both sides by 2. When you do that, you get x plus 5 raised to the 4th equals 64. Now that you have the x plus 5 raised to the 4th alone, this is where you cancel the exponent. In order to cancel the exponent, you take that root. So I'm going to take the 4th root right here. And what I do to the left, I have to do to the right. So these 4's cancel each other out, and you're left with just x plus 5 over here on the left. Whenever you do the 4th root of 64, the 4th root of 64 is 4, and anytime you take an even root, you need a plus or minus. Do not forget that. So what that's going to look like is you now have x plus 5 equals positive 4 and x plus 5 equals negative 4. You're going to get two different solutions. So you would subtract 5 from both sides, and you'd get x is negative 1. That's one solution. And then when I subtract 5 again, I get x is negative 9. And that's another solution. So there you go, number 16 and 17. With number 18, you're trying to get x to the 5th by itself. So you're going to add 32 to both sides. When you do that, you get x to the 5th equals negative 32. You're going to go ahead and take the 5th root of x to the 5th to get that by itself, to get the x by itself. And those 5s are going to cancel each other out. So what you're left with is x equals the 5th root of negative 32 is actually going to be negative 2. You can type that into your calculator, hitting 5 math 5, negative 32. For number 19, the first thing you're going to do is get x cubed by itself. In order to do that, you're going to go ahead and subtract 100 from both sides. So you subtract 100 from both sides and you're left with negative 1 over 10 x cubed equals negative 100. You need to still get x cubed by itself. So what you're going to do is you're going to multiply both sides by the reciprocal. So I'm going to multiply by negative 10 over 1. So that crosses out. Instead of dividing by a fraction, I just multiply by the reciprocal, which is a flipped fraction. So I'm left with x cubed equals negative 1,000. In order to get rid of the cubed, I'm going to go ahead and do the cube root. Those 3's will cancel out. What I'm left with is x equals negative 10.